Good evening, I'm Jim Whaley. Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister is generally considered to be one of the best autobiographies to come out of the film world, and its author is my guest tonight, Miss Evelyn Keyes, making a return engagement to Cinema Showcase. Her book is about to be out in paperback, so I hope you will join me tonight as I talk with Evelyn Keyes on Cinema Showcase. Thank you very much for joining Cinema Showcase tonight, and right now join me in welcoming back to the program Ms. Evelyn Keyes. Thank you very much for taking time out to come by.
It's a pleasure.
It's been, goodness, 3 or 4 years since you were here.
3 or 4 years, yes. I was here in No No Nanette with Don Amici, you were just mentioning.
Yeah. He's made several appearances, and a little bit more frequently than you, so maybe this will mark a nice return for you, and you won't take 4 years to come back again.
Well, you see, he's out there acting. I'm here writing.
Right.
So I spend a lot of my time in a little room all by myself without any audience at all.
Everybody says that writing is really a terribly lonely thing. Do you find it to be that?
Well, no, I don't feel lonely. I feel quite the contrary. I've got all these characters that will do what I want them to. Mm-hmm. I don't have the problem of them misbehaving because I'll just erase them if they do. So,
if they act up, get rid of them.
Yeah, that's it, over and out.
Yeah. I meant what I said in the intro about your book, I think, being one of really the best autobiographies I've ever read. Was it a tough book to write? Was anything particularly difficult for you in it?
Well, no more than any other book, except with the added complication that it was my own life story. And so I had the problem of deciding, since we don't need one more Hollywood book, do we? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're out there, thousands of them. What my book could offer that another book did not have. And I decided that it was really my own very personal story. Because God knows there are literally thousands of young people still wanting to go to Hollywood or wanting to go in the theater, wanting to become an actress. So I could tell what that was like. You know, we were all of us, every one of us, we're always having to decide our life's work really before we're capable of doing it, aren't we? You know?
That's true.
You know, and unfortunately we don't live long enough to have perhaps 2 careers, except here I am, I'm an exception. It's very exciting in middle age to have another career. Anyhow, you see, I was raised on the Cinderella story, like most girls are. I don't know if boys are. I don't know if they see themselves as the prince, but girls see themselves as Cinderella because there she is in her little chimney corner, and the marvelous prince comes and takes her, and they live happily ever after. Huh? Mm-hmm. So I believed that. I thought that was my future. All you have to be is a pretty little thing, and a prince somewhere will rescue you, you know, from your dusty corner. And sure enough, it happened to me. It really did. I went to Hollywood, and right away, without even a screen test, Cecil B. DeMille signed me. And the people I was meeting were all those marvelous people I'd grown up with on the screen. They were bigger than life, but now there I was among them, Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart and, you know, Vivian Leigh, so that I actually became Cinderella. But what was missing was the happy ending. I mean, it kept coming along and then kept going away. Then I'd brush myself off, pull myself together, try again. I had several marriages, as you know, since you've read the book, and I picked directors an awful lot. I thought they would explain how to have this happy ending. John Huston was one of them, and Kirk Douglas was a friend of mine, in the biblical sense, for a while. and so it would be great for a while, but then, whoops, it would be over. and the happy ending would get lost. And I began to realize that something was amiss. Something was amiss. And so I've written about these relationships, because we're always trying to have relationships, aren't we? We're always trying to get together with, on the little box. I was sitting, I hear them all the time, how to make a marriage work, how to do right by your man or by your woman or by your child. We're always trying to do it. So people can, my reader can understand that, because they too are, you know, are trying to do it. So that in essence is what it's about, don't you think?
Yeah,
you read it?
Yeah, you don't, that brings to mind, though, you don't think it's any more difficult for anyone in films or the acting world. Is it any more difficult, the Cinderella story? Are actresses somehow more attracted to that sort of thing than secretaries?
Well, first of all, whatever makes you want to go be an actress is already a complication.
Yeah.
I mean, to choose a business that you have to get up and show yourself off, that's already complicated, isn't it? You know?
That's true.
Yeah. And the thing you're showing off is going to stay the same way throughout your life. You know, so it's a limited arrangement that you have already gotten yourself into. Of course it's more complicated because you're bigger than life. I mean, you're in the looking glass, aren't you? You know, other people out there looking at you. So that makes it different already. And two, you have such opportunities. You know, if you don't like something, most people are stuck in that position. But if you're there and making all that money and getting all that admiration, if you don't like something, you can change it. Him or her, I'm talking about, you know, and you can go off. So it makes it easier to have different partners in life.
Yeah. One thing I particularly admired about the book is that it's so much different from most of the star stories or the director's stories or the composer's stories, because it usually ends up as leading from one event to another. Your book doesn't do that. Were you consciously trying to avoid that sort of thing?
No, well, I had a theme, as I've just told you. It really, what it is a survival, because it was tough for me when I began to realize that this wasn't happening to me, and I thought everybody else had the happy ending. I thought everybody else in the world knew the answer to a great life except me. So I started thinking, what's wrong with me? At that point, that was after my third marriage and a few affairs that are all very clear in the book, as you know. I had to step back. I said, I don't know how to choose a partner. I don't know what to do. And that's when I went into psychotherapy, which is the best thing I ever did. The book comes out of that because it becomes a knowledge of myself and of the people around me and what we're all, I really learned what I told you earlier, the fact we're all trying to have a relationship. And something is wrong now because what is it, 1 out of 3 marriages don't make it to the end? You know, so all our attitudes are kind of mixed up about that. So that was the theme of the book I had, you know, that I went out on. So it took care of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't try to avoid.
I think in reading your book, then people could not only get a glimpse of a fascinating career, but perhaps find a few answers too about themselves.
I hope so. I mean, I really hoped for that when I was writing it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taken me a long time to grow up. I just grew up, you know. Some people are lucky. They grow up when they're supposed to, whenever that is, 21,
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I suppose it really doesn't have anything to do with age growing up. I mean, because growing up is an accumulation of knowledge and, you know, I was just slow, that's all.
Let's talk for a minute or two about Cecil B. DeMille, because goodness knows the man is probably still the most legendary Hollywood director of them all. Wasn't it a bit awesome to be put under contract to him, the first bat?
Awesome. Because here, where I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, there was a radio program, that was before television, there was a radio program called the Lux Radio Theater of the Air. It was on a Sunday night and we all listened to it, and he was the master of ceremonies. So he was the one besides the stars. I mean, he's the only one I knew. I mean, he was as famous as any big star. because of this program. I thought he was God. God signed me to a contract. I mean, I was overwhelmed when I walked into his office. And then we took some pictures in. He looked at those and he said, yes, I think we can do something. And that was it. No screen test, no anything. He was always at a distance. I mean, he was always Mr. DeMille. Mm-hmm. And I was a kid, they called me the baby. That was my name. They never called me anything else but the baby. I'd been the baby at home, so it was a kind of a continuation. Grandfather was now in charge. And he played God, too. I mean, Mr. DeMille, see, I still can't, it's even harder to say DeMille. DeMille never made a move unless there was a whole long retinue behind him. Never. He never went to lunch in the commissary. He never left the lot. He never went anywhere unless there were people behind him. Do you know on the set, he never looked around to sit down?
I've heard that.
Well, it's true. And a man carried a stool. He didn't bother to look down. That stool was there. It also happened to be his son-in-law.
That helps. That's what I call confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was The Buccaneer the first movie?
Yes, he put me in that. I realize now it was like for a screen test. I went to see what I looked like on film and was using me at the same time. My first scene ever in pictures was with Frederick March.
Quite a beginning.
Yeah, it was. I met Tony Quinn there and had a little a very small do with him. He was marvelous looking, still is, I think, would you? Yeah.
In fact, I just saw him in The Greek Tycoon, his new film, which he's fabulous in it, of course. The movie is not quite what one would hope, but he's fabulous.
Everyone says that, but say go see it because it's fun.
Yeah, it's sort of like Other Side of Midnight, which is marvelous, can I say trash? Marvelous trash?
Yeah,
okay.
That's probably what it is.
Everyone says that DeMille took more time with the spectacle than he did with his actors. Is that true?
I'm not sure, because I never really did anything but a little bit. Now, he certainly took a lot of time with me. I mean, I was like an extra. An extra has a line here and there. So that's all in the world I was, except I happened to be in a contract with him. Mm-hmm. The detail of the hair and the clothes I had on to the hem, the color, the matching, and you have no doubt, it was weeks he watched out over this. And so it wasn't just mine, that was every detail for everybody. So when it became, and he took the scene over and over and over till he got what he wanted. Mm-hmm. So I think he probably paid attention.
What about, was he tyrannical at all?
Oh, of course. Oh, I saw him do outrageous things. I meant that sitting, knowing that the stool is going to be there to your son-in-law, I think that's rather tyrannical. I remember him asking for a piece of film once. You know, he kept the same people around him. And so, at this time, DeMille, well, I thought he was very old. He was probably in his early 60s. And I thought, you know, it's ancient. But this woman was a cutter, a film cutter. Mm-hmm. And she had been with him forever. A gray-haired woman, I remember. And he wanted a piece of film on the set. I guess he was going to match. So she obviously didn't understand, and she brought the whole reel, which is a huge thing. And he pulled it out, and he couldn't find it, and he got angry, and he ripped that whole film out and threw it on the floor. And you know, everybody was afraid to pick it up. That old lady had to get down on the floor and pick it up herself. He had a tantrum.
Oh, I guess when you're Cecil B. DeMille, you can have a tantrum if you want to.
Yes, you can, and get away with it. Yeah.
How did Go On with the Wind come about?
I was borrowed. That was going on all the search.
While you were with DeMille,
DeMille, yes. The search over there at Selznick International was, the search for Scarlett was going on. They were all over the United States. No, they were just in the South, I guess. So they were looking at people coming far and wide, and everybody under contract at every studio went to see Selznick for something or other. I guess they were all trying to play Scarlett. I guess that was the main thing to find. Everybody but me, who was from Atlanta, you know. And finally, just before they were starting to shoot, I can't even remember if they had shot something, you know, some background. I don't mean that they hadn't Scarlett then, but I think they're beginning. I think Selznick had it. They finally got around to me, and I went over there to see Selznick and Washington. George Cukor was the director then. I went to see the two of them, but by that time, see, I'd lost my Southern accent.
Oh.
Because DeMille had said, "You don't want to play Southern girls all your life, do you?" I thought of it one way or the other. I said, "No, no, sir." And so they took my speech apart and put it together again in another form without the accent, and that's when I went over. And the first thing George Cukor said, "Could you do a Southern accent?" I said, sure I can. You know, fell into it instantly. And so I was really cast before Vivien Leigh.
Really?
Yes, they said you are Suellen if you look like the Scarlett we're going to have, if you can be a member of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I think in November, I'm not quite sure. I do have it right in the book because I looked it up at the time. Oh, it was November or January, and I think he found her around Christmas time.
Yeah, very dramatically, as I remember.
Yeah, yes, they were burning Atlanta.
Right.
Found her in the, you know, with the flames. She visited the set and the flames were on her face, and he said, "Ah, there's Scarlett." Yeah.
What do you think gives the movie, I know everyone asks you this, but what do you think gives the movie the enduring appeal it has? It's still, I'm sure, the most widely seen film of all time.
Well, I looked at it on television. I wasn't going to, you know, because I thought it needed the big scope. But since my book was going to be called Scarlett O'Hara's Younger Sister, I did. And it was quite incredible because it did hold up, even on the tiny little screen. I just think it's good. I just think it's believable. Mm-hmm. And the performances were marvelous, and the actors related to each other. And I don't really know. I know I enjoyed it, even on the thing this side.
Yeah.
I thought the second half was a little bit soap opera-y, but the first half was just can't be improved upon.
Yeah. I know. How many directors? I know at least four directors worked on the picture.
3, I believe.
3. Victor Fleming,
Could
George
there have been a
Cukor.
4th that I didn't miss?
I know Sam Wood was there for
Sam Wood, and George Cukor was the first, and then Vic Fleming. Really.
Who did you work for mainly?
A little bit of all of them.
Really?
Yeah, you know, it started out that Suellen, the two sisters, were just kind of in the background. I don't know, they may have had a line or two, but I kept being called back. I was called back over a period of 6 months. And every time I'd go back, I'd do a line that would be somewhere else in the story. I was just all added material on the part of Suellen. And Gary, so that's how I happened to work with all of them, you know, because I was so spread out.
Yeah.
And then the extraordinary thing, here I am, in a big picture. And when it was over, DeMille dropped me, dropped my option.
You have a marvelous part in your book about your parting with DeMille, which happened kind of melodramatically. You came to him and he said, "This is the time to leave," or whatever. That's a marvelous section of the book.
Oh, I went to say goodbye.
Yeah.
You mean when you dropped my option? Yes,
Yeah.
I went to say goodbye, and he said, you know, I said, "I'll thank you," and he said, "Well, I'm sure you'll do all right." And I said, "I'm going out there, and I'm going to do it for you, Mr. DeMille. I'm going to show you that your first belief in me was true." And he said, "I'm sure you will." We were both, I was dramatic anyway, and he was very sweet to go along with it.
Yeah. Was it thereafter that you signed with Columbia?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. I know early in your Columbia contract you made what remains one of the best fantasy films ever made, and that's Here Comes Mr. Jordan. Have you seen that lately?
No.
It holds up so well.
Does it?
So well. Was it a fun picture to do?
Well, now, not for me. No, it wasn't. First of all, it was with Robert Montgomery. He didn't want me, I don't think. And the director didn't want me. I don't know who did. I don't know what I was. So I felt very uncomfortable. I still didn't know what I was doing about acting. you know. I mean, when I was at DeMille, they had a little theater on the lot. We used to go to class there. I think I have a picture in the book of Tony Quinn and me doing some scene in there. That was from the little theater. And so that had been my entire acting education, and it wasn't much, believe me. And so here I was in a lead in a picture, really without the wherewithal. I'm sure that's why they didn't want me, see? But already I felt rejected, even though I was in the picture, you follow me, you know?
Sure.
There's somebody who doesn't love me around here. So I wasn't comfortable. They also, see, they were always doing that in those days. They would find somebody and then start to change them. Now you look, I have a perfectly straight nose. Now most noses go off a little some way to the side. Mine doesn't, perfectly straight. So what they did was they painted my nose dark on the outside and light here, which is to make it straight, you know, to straighten out a crooked nose. All I did was make mine longer. Then they decided my lips were too full, so they painted lips inside here. So I felt, you know, and now, you see, I don't have this is it, this dreadful hair, and they decided, because they already had Rita Hayworth, so they wanted me to look like Rita Hayworth, who had lots of hair and lots of bosoms. I didn't have enough of that, so they padded me here. Now they put, I always remember who it was, because Otto Kruger was an actor whose hair happened to match mine, so there was an old lot of toupee around. So they had pasted this toupee on the top of me to give me more hair like Rita Hayworth. So I'm padded, my nose, my lips they don't like. Obviously they've changed everything. And I can't tell you how insecure it can make a girlie feel. You know, it's not you they like, they're trying to change it all. So that's what I went through in that picture. You can see I didn't enjoy. I'm sorry about that, because it's a good picture, isn't it?
It being remade.
Yeah, Warren made it.
Yeah, heaven can wait.
I ran into him at a party. I was at Kirk Douglas's son was getting married. Big party, and I'm introduced to everybody. This is just last year, I guess it was. Introduced to Warren Beatty. I'd never met him before. And I'm going, and I see, feel he's looking. I look back and I smile. I go, meeting other. I look back and Warren's still looking at me. So I said, Warren, why are you looking at me that way? And he said, because I've been looking at you steadily for the last 6 months, and I'm so shocked to see you walk in person. He'd been running the film, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, you know,
you have made some big box office hits, in addition to, of course, The Champ, Gone with the Wind, the Jolson Story. Do you have a favorite film? Of all the films you've done, is there one that stands out to you personally?
Of my films that I like? Yeah, well, I certainly like the Jolson Story. You know, that was a good one. But the one I like the best is one called The Prowler. And it was with Van Heflin, who was such a marvelous actor. It was directed by Joe Losey, who had to get out of town right after that because the blacklisting was on at the time. And I never knew it was written by Dalton Trumbo till many, many years later, because he was blacklisted. Those were terrible times, you know.
Yeah.
But you know what a good screenwriter he is, and so this was a neat screenplay. And we rehearsed for 3 weeks before we began the shoot, and we rehearsed part of that time at the last few days with the cameraman too. We had a little boom, followed us everywhere. So we knew what we were doing, and with a good solid script, and I think that's probably the best one.
That's fairly rare, isn't it, to rehearse that much before a film?
Hardly ever. Or then, you know, I don't make pictures now, but I don't think they do. Maybe. I think cameras are more flexible now, and they probably can get around.
Looking back on the studio system method of making films, do you think that was the best way to do it, or do you think today is better, but with all the independent contracts and so forth?
There's a little of yes and no, and But both of those things, you know, the studio, there were big advantages, but being independent has advantages too. So I don't really, I could list them, but it would take a while. I mean, there's no doubt when you've got a big studio and all those departments there, that that it's easy and produces marvelous things, produced stars, because you had all these departments taking care of you.
Yeah.
I mean, then there were writers, everybody, producers, everybody's under contract. So that effort, that's there's no doubt it's helpful. On the other hand, you have freedom now. You have freedom if you can get the money.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to go get the money. You've got to do all that. But at least you can come up with what you want to do rather than being told all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite marvelous too.
Yeah. I know the one thing that I hear more often than not is that everyone says they liked the security of the studios, but that they did feel like a machine at some times.
Yeah, that's right. So, that's the bad part. You really did belong. Nobody, they keep running Gone with the Wind, for instance. It's sold again for another $1 zillion. Huh? Not one person in there ever got any more than the salary. I mean, I see my little bit. If I got a penny for every million, that was, But not Olivia de Havilland. Nobody.
Yeah.
Not Clark Gable, if he were alive, wouldn't be getting anything. Yeah.
That's not quite fair.
I don't think it's fair.
Really?
No.
We are just about out of time, and I want to thank you again for coming by, and want to urge everyone to read Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, which is now or soon to be out in paperback. Are you working on another book?
Oh, yes. A novel this time.
Great.
I had another novel before this, as a matter of fact, so this will be my second novel.
Wonderful. When can we expect that?
Next year. I'm very slow.
Well, come back and see us for that one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My thanks to all of you for watching. Until next time, good night.